Hold the lights off. Hey YouTube, so I changed my username. It was Dibs, but Dibs was a thing I started back in the day, regards to a friend, where we were going to start a YouTube channel. But now that my content's being more political, I thought it was more appropriate for me to change it. So now it's Relent Me, which is just kind of like a random name, but excuse me. This will be the first video I'm actually pretty serious about. Usually, I have a tendency to cuss from my upbringing. Grew up with a lot of sailors, so I learned how to cuss. And generally, I try to keep it lighthearted. But I'm gonna keep this one pretty serious. Let me go ahead and share the screen. And yes, I have worked in sales. That's why I say that. Will be the first serious video because the censorship efforts in the last 2 to 3 weeks have escalated, and it was easy to see this coming, mainly with global conflicts and economic uncertainty. Both of those usually prelude war, which what preludes war is the control of information. So I'll get into that a little bit later, but there's a lot of things I wanted to discuss over the last few weeks and give my general predictions on for the rest of 2025. So those who are new to my channel, I studied history at a top 100 U.S. history at a top 100 school, and mainly studied pre-World War One. Now, as a secondary focus over the years since graduating, I have studied mainly intelligence agencies and how it interplays with everyday society and how it ties in with history a lot. And the intelligence agencies, ever since like I would say the 70s and maybe even JFK, has really been very important. And then with technology, it's become even more important. So also just there's crazy news going on, and I wanted to bring it up from an American standpoint. If you're not in America, just remember this is with my context. I know there's a lot going on, especially in the UK, everywhere really, but this will be an American context, mainly about freedoms and censorship. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was the Epstein. Sorry, it's been a long day. So the Epstein news has just been a complete mess. It's been a mess mainly due, really, because it's been covered up for over 2 decades now. Maybe not 2 decades, about almost 2 decades now. And both parties have been playing hot potato with it. So hot potato here, hot potato there. And the reason is because the intelligence agencies are involved. For what, I'm not exactly sure, but there is obviously something going on behind the scenes. People say Mossad. People are saying like it's a blackmail operation for enemies. No one really knows, and that's part of the problem why it's got everyone freaked out. So with really the biggest news I saw, which is going to play into Ghislaine Maxwell getting pardoned, is the lawyer for the sweetheart deal that happened in 2008 recently passed away. I don't think it was any sketchy circumstances. I think he was up there in age, but it's just that's going to make it even harder for really any justice, not justice, but for things to follow the way they should. Um, and what I mean by that is the lawyer was able to get confidential information. He can't give it out due to confidentiality agreements, but he was the one that could, go on interviews. And I think at one point he said, "Oh, I know exactly who is involved with Epstein and Trump." And I don't think he did names, but he said he could have verified. Now that man is gone. So there's going to be very hard to get firsthand accounts for any evidence relating to that sweetheart deal. And that's where intelligence ties come in. Now, there's been a lot of speculation that Ghislaine Maxwell is going to get pardoned. I believe so as well, just because I think that's the only legal course of action to get names. Now, here's where it gets interesting. And this is just a theory, and I'm big into theories, but also they've been very true recently. And like MK Ultra was a thing. People forget about that. But what's interesting is I think in order for a list to come out, there is going to have to be a radical change in legal and law practices, mainly regarding information and technology. Because of that sweetheart deal, all the individuals involved at the time, I guess, but that's an umbrella term. All the individuals were let go, were not absolved for the sweetheart deal. They pretty much said, okay, just to recap, Epstein will plead guilty to a lighter sentence, but any co-conspirators and evidence is not involved. So in order to break that, I think there is going to be a level of censorship brought on. Pretty much, I think what could happen is the government just kind of puts their cards on the table and goes, okay, we're going to have, a lot more censorship, really. And so that ties into what I'm going to get into a little bit later. But that's the Epstein update. I do think people will be held accountable, but I think it's going to be a radical change in our justice system, which is honestly probably needed. So that's really good. Now, the next one I want to get into is, and this is the big one. This is a big one for me. So, Russiagate, the Twitter files, and the civil conflict behind the scenes. So, recently in the last few days, Hillary Clinton Hillary Clinton and Obama have been in the news for the 2016 election where they said Russia was interfering. Um, from what I understand, there was signs of Russia trying to hack into one person, but it wasn't due to anything regarding Trump. Again, this is very. I'm not a lawyer here. Everything I say, disclaimer. Everything I say is a theory. Like I'm, I'm some random dude. But they've been in the news because now it's shown that even though Russia was, and hacking happens at every level. Like we hack the Russians. It's a monitoring thing. It's an intelligence counterintelligence thing. Everyone does it to each other. But the level that they said it was, so they were pretty much saying, "Hey, Trump is in collusion with Russia," blah 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 blah. That wasn't true at all. What really happened, I believe, was Russia was just independently monitoring this one random dude. And here's where you got to remember this. This is why they're in the news lately. There is a report that came out, I think a whistleblower, the intelligence agencies relayed it to at least Hillary. I'm not sure about Obama, but probably Obama too, but at least to Hillary saying Russia and Trump are not actively colluding. And she pretty much said, I don't care. We're going to run it as a main slogan for our campaign. Now that is, and here's the question with legality. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but it's not good. It's not good. And I do think there is like actual legal repercussions. So that's why Russiagate and Hillary and Obama are in the news right now. Now, how that ties into Twitter files is that was 2016. 2020 is when the Twitter files happened, showing about the Hunter Biden laptop story and big tech's involvement with the Democratic Party and intelligence agencies. And again, all three, everything's a system. It's how they work together. But there was a slight level of censorship, and that was allowed. So because of both of these things, mainly the Russiagate recently, I do think that there is a shadow civil, not war, but shadow civil conflict going on with just our government body. I think our government body behind the scenes is actively, the politicians hate each other left and right, but I think the behind the scenes people are actually at odds with each other now. So that's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out. So going to the next one is just the social credit wars here, T and ID verification. So this is just, I think in the last few weeks, the UK, I think it was like a Child Safety Act was passed, and payment processors with Visa, let me put that in there. Sorry if I'm going fast here. There's a lot going on. So pretty much all of a sudden in the last month, there's been, T is a little different. I probably maybe shouldn't have put them on there. I can't believe that was allowed to be anonymous. That's the important word. But the payment processors not like pretty much choosing what is mature, which again, these are very blanket statements, but choosing what's mature and saying, okay, we're not going to, I think there was one with Steam where Steam lost 30% of their revenue because pretty much Visa and all these big companies were like, we're not going to process your payments unless you adhere to our ethics, pretty much, which is there's a line in the sand there that's being crossed. And so that happened. YouTube, among other, it's really happening in the UK, but it's going to start happening in the US now. They're going to start requiring ID verification. So you're going to put your biometric with your face along with your ID. And there's so many security concerns there. But more importantly, it's creating a digital ID, which there's already been one. Like everything you do on the internet is somewhat trackable on a basis, but it's really becomes an issue when, and this is funny, it's actually not government censorship that I'm worried about, it's corporate censorship. If the government can't do it, I guess they'll just vendor it out. But it's a slippery slope because I mean we fought a revolution over this. Like the big one is innocent until proven guilty. And when people need a warrant, like hey, when the cops show up, or if the cops show up, they say, "I have a warrant to go in your house. I have a warrant to go in your property." That's a huge deal because back in the 1700s under Great Britain, they could just go in and say, okay, like let's say pot, marijuana. They could just be like, yeah, we suspected marijuana. Come in, break down, see what they find, take you to jail. Boom, you're gone for life. Like that's how important it was. And so this is really going to be a test of our constitution. And then T, I put T in there because I just can't. One, it just happened so fast with T. It happened really quickly. Um, but it's pretty much it's pretty much a man review app, which is pretty much a pseudo social credit score. And I think that's a very slippery slope. And it's not good. Like I work in sales. I'm a professional. I work in business, and the fact is like when you get home, you can take off the mask, and this is just compartmentalization with work. But now with everyone you meet, you got to be scared they're going to leave a bad review. And it's one thing to blast someone online and be like, so and so sucked on a date.